Uh-oh, a land is in peril? Well, it's up to Link to save the day. It's The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening DX on the Game Boy Color, today on Power Up. Why, hello there. As always, welcome to the show. For this episode, I'll keep the Game Boy awesomeness going by taking a look at a really cool little awesome gem and one of the best games for the Game Boy. Or in this case, the Game Boy Color. In the mid-90s, Nintendo finally released The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening for the Game Boy. It was a really cool addition to the Game Boy library, and to me it was very complex as well. Well, flash forward a couple of years later to about 1998, where Nintendo's next successor, the Game Boy Color, was released. So for the launch of the Game Boy Color, Nintendo re-released The Legend of Zelda, but with one really big change: color. Cool! And it was pretty cool to finally see this game in color. Well, as luck should have it, for this episode, I'm reviewing no other than The Legend of Zelda, The Link's Awakening DX for the Game Boy Color. And this is also compatible with the old game, with the old green and black or black and white Game Boy as well. Well then, let's go save the day, shall we? The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening was first released on the original Game Boy in 1993. The Game Boy Color version didn't come out until 1998. Anyway, in it, Link is on a little boat heading back to Hyrule. On the way back, he runs into a big lightning storm or a big storm on the seas, and then the storm destroys his boat. And so he's floating, and then he apparently gets shipwrecked on an island called Koholint Island. I hope I said that right. Koholint, I think. Anyway, a girl called Marin finds him and brings him to her house to recuperate. Soon after, he wakes up, learns where he is, and sets on a quest to find his sword. Then when he gets his sword, a strange owl goes something like, "You must wake the windfish." What? Windfish? I know, it sounds pretty weird. And here it gets even weirder. And actually as well, there's a big egg on top of this mountain. Weird. But anyway, so basically Link's mission in this game is to collect 8 of these sirens' instruments to wake the windfish so he can leave the island, which is kind of weird, but I think it works pretty well. What's interesting to note about this game is that this game began as like a side project, and they would develop it after hours, which is kind of neat. Eventually, I guess one of the designers or the manager wanted to make a Game Boy version of A Link to the Past. It's kind of funny because A Link to the Past actually finally came to the Game Boy Advance. But anyway, along the line, they were just futzing with it, and they were just playing around. And eventually what became that little side project became Link's Awakening, which is pretty neat. Anyway, the game is pretty much straightforward Zelda. You just go to dungeons, beat bosses, get items, and repeat. But anyway, what's cool is there's also, for the Game Boy Color version, to take advantage of the Game Boy Color's capabilities, they added a special color dungeon. And if you can beat the boss in that dungeon, you can choose between 2 different tunics. A red tunic will give you added offense or added attack power, whereas a blue tunic will half your damage, so it'll give you better defense. So it's kind of cool, so I think that was pretty cool. For controls, since there's only 2 buttons on the Game Boy, instead of, if they were to assign buttons like that probably wouldn't have worked too well. So it's interesting, in this one, they have, you can choose which items to assign to which buttons. You can do so whenever you want. So you're free to assign whatever items you want to B and A, which is pretty cool. And also cool is you can combine items. For instance, if you have the arrows, the bow and arrows, and bombs, if you assign bombs and bow and arrows to the 2 items, and actually push them together at the same time, you can fire like a arrow bomb of sorts, which is pretty cool. And there are also a lot of items in this game as well. And in fact, some items from A Link to the Past make an appearance, such as the Pegasus boots. And there are also new items, most notably the Roc's Feather, which allows you to jump. And that also lets you, and also in each dungeon, you usually use that item you find in that certain level to clear that level in a certain way, which is pretty cool as a matter of fact. Also in this game, being it was basically a side project, there's also a lot of cameos from other Nintendo characters, such as the Goombas, which you'll see in this review, I think. And what's cool is, for the Goombas, depending on how you defeat them, you can get different bonuses. If you stomp on them, you get hearts. If you attack them with your sword, you get rupees, which is pretty cool. Back in the day when this game came out, back on the original Game Boy, I didn't really think too much of it, although I did think it looked pretty cool. And I think back in the day, back in like the 90s, I think, I had looked at it and it looked pretty cool, and I wasn't into Zelda at that point too much, but when I was on vacation later that year, I was on vacation, I did play it. I was able to play it on my Game Boy. I was able to play the first 3 levels, and it was pretty fun. Well, nowadays, I did get the Game Boy version, as well as the Game Boy Color version, and I finished them both. And they're pretty cool, actually. Although I give Nintendo props for moving the location of the adventure from Hyrule to a brand new, area, a brand new location. I think it works, and it's pretty cool. Although it is funny to stomp on Goombas in a Legend of Zelda game. And the funny thing is, it's even done mostly when you fight them. They're done in a side-scrolling view, which is funny. And I think there's even piranha plants in this game too, which is even more humorous. But yeah, this is just an odd game, but also it's a fun one. So, and also I believe if you have a 3DS, this game is available on the 3DS Virtual Console. So if you haven't played this yet, and you don't have a Game Boy Color, or even an SP, and if you have a 3DS, please give this game a download. It's worth the money, and it's pretty cool to play. So yeah, good stuff. And as usual, if you live in or around South St. Paul, Minnesota, or the Twin Cities metro area to be specific, please visit my good friends at Level Up Games. And of course the address is below already, if it isn't down there already. And if you are seeing this on YouTube, if you like all this awesomeness, please subscribe to my channel. And I also have a Twitter feed, Facebook fan and group page, and a website. All that fun stuff is down below as well, if it isn't already. Well, anyway, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for another episode of Power Up.